that was allocated in the special session in June of this year, House Bill 3002. Puts a $2 million plus state's federal overreach restricted account for costs associated with countering federal overreach on public lands in Utah. I mean, is it really worth it? I mean, is this really something we want to be doing? I don't know. Records show that the state has paid $55,000 just to local news outlets. That includes $18,000 to the Salt Lake Tribune, $15,000 to Deseret News Online, $19,000 to Deseret Digital Media, which runs KSL and KSL.com. As these are ongoing, of course, these numbers are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've got this tremendous amount of money set aside for this program, and I don't know whether other states are doing this. This Pana Powers, this media group, has shown that they've got, it's a very conservative media outlet. They've got other programs that they're sort of soliciting here, that they're putting money toward. New York Times opinion writer podcast spent $100,000 to the Washington Post for advertising, $62,000 to the Wall Street Journal. It just adds up and up and up. And I'd be interested, if you're listening and you wanted to chime in, what you think about A, the lawsuit itself, and B, what you think about the money that's being spent on this to try to convince the public that this is what you want to do. Now, let me tell you something else. This is a direct file with the Supreme Court. That's a highly unusual thing. We don't ever, I shouldn't say, but we rarely just file a lawsuit in the Supreme Court of the United States because it's an appellate court. It hears appeals. Typically, what you would do, and what they've indicated that they will do if the Supreme Court doesn't take this, is you file in the district court, which in Utah, the federal district court is the trial court. That's where things start. If you don't like what you get there, you go to the appeals court, and Utah's federal court of appeals is what's called the 10th Circuit. It's in Denver. If you don't like what's happening there, you can take it up to the United States Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, obviously, but we don't usually start there. But because this was a petition filed to take over federally controlled public land, the state of Utah decided, for whatever reason, that it should be filed in the Supreme Court directly. They haven't even decided whether they'll take that up. The lawsuit was filed in August, so what have we got? 3 months, almost 4 months later, the Supreme Court hasn't decided if they're even going to take it. And meanwhile, Utah's into this it looks like $1 million, waiting to see whether the Supreme Court will take it. If they don't, the state of Utah has said, we'll just file in district court and see where it goes. And, of course, if you do that, you're looking at spending much, much more. Starting with the Supreme Court and ending with the Supreme Court would seem to be the best way for taxpayers to address this issue. But I doubt the Supreme Court is just going to take a case like this on its own and say, hey, we're going to bypass the trial court. Because that's where you vet the issues. That's where you vet the facts. That's where you can have a trial, where you can bring in witnesses, where you can talk about what the issues are. The Supreme Court doesn't hear that. You can't do a trial in the Supreme Court. You can't. They don't have a jury box. They don't have a witness stand. They don't have a place to confront and cross-examine witnesses. So it's an unusual procedure. We'll see where it goes. I mean, this is the United States Supreme Court. I guess they can do whatever they want. But yeah, you would expect a case like this to have begun in the trial court level. When we come back after the break, we have been talking about for the last day or two, President Biden pardoning his son. It's a highly unusual procedure. It's a highly unusual thing that we haven't seen before, and it's something that we want to talk about after the break. Make sure you're signed up to get KSL's newsletter with the 3 things you need to know each day. Just text INBOX, INBOX, to 57500 to get started. Stay with us. After the break, we're going to break down the Biden pardoning of Biden.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news out of South Korea. The president of that country says he will lift his martial law declaration just hours after declaring it. ABC News reports the president says he ordered martial law to protect South Korea from North Korean communist forces, but the country's parliament voted against it. So according to South Korean law, because the parliament voted it down, it has to be lifted now. Delta Airlines cut the ribbon today on a new pilot training center in Salt Lake City. KSL News Radio's Heather Kelly has details.
The nearly 50,000 square foot facility will help train Delta pilots based in Seattle, Minneapolis, and Salt Lake. That's from Delta's Chief of Operations, John Lauder. Mayor Aaron Mendenhall says most people get to make mistakes without much consequence in their jobs, but not pilots. That's why this training center and the business it brings to our state is so important. Delta will also be the first airline in the world to reach 100 years in operations next year. Heather Kelly, KSL News Radio.
A preliminary hearing has been scheduled now for the woman accused of murdering her husband and then hiding the body. Jennifer Gledhill is facing multiple charges. Her parents have also been arrested, being accused of helping their daughter clean up after the crime. She is scheduled to appear in court on January 21st. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is down right now, 69 points on the day. The NASDAQ is up by 52. And our KSL weather, we're on repeat day after day. Sunshine and dirtier air. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code SECONDFREE by January 26th. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Guys, it's finally here. Wendy's new salted caramel frosty. It's cold, salted, yet perfectly sweet, delicious, and it's at the top of Santa's Christmas list. What? Santa has a list too, you know. And he's a huge salted caramel frosty fan. Probably why he's so jolly all the time. The iconic frosty with a salted caramel twist? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Salted caramel frosty flavored with other natural flavors.
Your business needs a network it can count on.
Power's out.
Comcast Business has you covered with Wi-Fi backup to help keep your business up and running, even when your power goes out.
Everybody in the warehouse good?
Lights are out, but the Wi-Fi's up. Let's power on.
It's from the company with 99.9% network reliability.
Break room, you good?
Can't microwave my burrito, but Wi-Fi's fine. Let's power on.
Power on with the leader in connectivity, Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ask about Wi-Fi backup for your business or get started with reliable internet and advanced security for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year contract, plus for a limited time. Ask about an $800 holiday bonus prepaid card with a qualifying internet package. Don't wait. Call or go online to ComcastBusiness.com today. Ins 12/15/24. Restrictions apply. New customers only with 150 megabit per second internet and security edge. EcoBill and autopay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair. Save on every gallon with the DinoPay app. And here's Ricky Meese.
Had delays on I-80 in Parley's Canyon near the quarry. They may have needed to stop traffic in both directions in order to do some work there, but traffic is starting to move again. However, you still may see some residual busy traffic. And we also have an accident in the cleanup stages, Riverdale Road near 7th West. It had been blocking a right lane of traffic in Riverdale. The Chris Kindle Market, December 4th through 7th at This Is the Place Heritage Park, has more booths, food, entertainment, and free nearby parking and shuttle. Details and map, visit thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The winter air inversion remains in place over the Wasatch Front, trapping pollution and reducing air quality. Cold front coming in this weekend could help conditions improve. Right now, 44 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomis from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
I'm extremely proud of my son Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
That was President Joe Biden on June 13th, 2024, speaking at a press conference in Italy, talking about his son Hunter Biden and the fact that at that time he had been indicted on no less than two federal charges involving two different matters. One is he purchased a gun. He purchased a gun in the state of Delaware, and when you purchase a gun in America, you have to go through what some people used to call the Brady Bill, which is, hey, before you buy a gun, you need to check the boxes here. Are you a convicted felon? Yes or no? You say no, you can move on to the next question. And then there's a series of questions. Have you been convicted of a crime involving domestic violence? Have you done this or that or whatever? One of the questions on the form that Hunter Biden filled out, and I guess that everyone would fill out, is, are you currently a drug user? He checked the box no. The Justice Department of the United States thought, that doesn't seem right. We know he was a drug user. He actually wrote a book about it. Family and friends said he was a drug user at the time, so he was indicted. He was indicted for purchasing a gun illegally, which in the United States is a felony. He was also charged in California with tax evasion. He failed to pay, allegedly, well, now he's pled guilty, so I guess it's not alleged anymore, taxes to the tune of $1.4 million in 2016, from 2016 to 2020. So it wasn't a tax fraud case. It was what we call a tax evasion case. In other words, he said, I owe the money, I just don't have it, I'm not going to pay it. So he gets indicted on that one as well. Now, back up a little bit more. The Justice Department appoints a special prosecutor here, David Weiss, who took over those prosecutions in the same way that Jack Smith did in the two indictments involving President Trump, in those two federal cases, which have now been dismissed by Jack Smith. But the Justice Department, and of course the president appoints his attorney general, Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland says, I don't want to be involved in the investigation of my boss's son, so they appoint a special prosecutor who works under the auspices of the Attorney General's office, but doesn't work for the Attorney General and isn't beholden to the Attorney General and doesn't have to answer to the questions of the Attorney General in making his prosecutorial decisions. He decides to indict Hunter Biden. He decides to pursue those cases. Hunter takes the gun case to a jury. They're not buying it. If you recall, people testified that I think a girlfriend or former partner had testified that he was using drugs at the time. There's no way he was not using drugs. This was something that he should have known better. He purchases the gun. Then he pleads guilty on the tax charge, and even as we're moving further down the line, people are saying he's got to be pardoning Hunter at some point, and this is what his press secretary said.
From a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
Why doesn't President Biden just pardon him?
President, I've been very clear. The president's not going to pardon his son. It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No. The president, I can speak for the president, and he said he would not pardon his son, and I'm just going to leave it there.
Joe Biden, what are you doing? Why are you saying these things? Why not just say, I haven't decided yet. I don't know what I'm going to do. ABC Chief White House Correspondent Mary Bruce told us exactly what has now happened.
It is a full and unconditional pardon. And that means it covers not just these charges, not just the gun charges, not just the tax-related charges, but any uncharged crimes between 2014 and 2024. So a 10-year period for which he is now protected. That certainly doesn't mean that Donald Trump and his political allies won't continue to go after Hunter Biden and the Biden family. They have argued without any evidence that there's corruption there.
Wow. So I will not pardon him. His press secretary is saying he won't pardon his son. This ain't going to happen. And now we learned that Biden has not only pardoned him, but given the kid a full and unconditional pardon. Now, let me talk to you about what a pardon is. In our Constitution, Article 2, Section 2 of the United States Constitution says this: the president shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment, period. That is in our Constitution. It has been in the Constitution for over 200 years. It is not subject to appeal by the United States Supreme Court. It's not subject to override by Congress or the Senate or the voters. It's just something that the president has. Do presidents pardon? They do it all the time. I've actually applied for pardons on behalf of clients in the past because in the federal system, the only way a person can get a federal conviction removed from their criminal record is by a presidential pardon. People say, hey, it's been 20 years. I've got this federal case. I had a client myself that had a gambling case. It was 20 years ago, now a very successful businessman. He's like, hey, I don't want this felony hanging over my head. I'd like to take my kids hunting. I'd like to do some things. Can we do something? You apply to the state. If you have state charges, you can get an expungement. You can go through the Board of Pardons. You can do that. In the federal system, there's only one way to get a felony removed from a record, and that is by a presidential pardon. Do they happen very often? Not very often at all. In fact, it appears that just from some of the numbers that we're looking at here, Trump granted something like 243 pardons while he was in office. And it's if you think about it, presidents don't issue pardons while they're up for re-election. They don't issue pardons in their first couple months in office. But once they're a lame duck, we see presidents issue pardons all the time. Former President Bill Clinton pardoned his half-brother Roger Clinton of a drug conviction on his last day in office in 2001. Even President Trump did the same thing for his daughter Ivanka's father-in-law, Charles Kushner, who had been convicted of tax evasion and witness tampering in the final days of Trump's term. Biden has broken new ground because this is the first time that he's... And let me just tell you something else before I'm digressing a little bit here. Usually a pardon occurs after the person has served their time, has been convicted, has abided by the terms of their probation, or what in the federal system we call it supervised release, and done what they need to do, and some period of time has passed. For example, if it's a drug case, the person's gone 10 years drug-free. They've completed some sort of drug court or rehabilitation process. They've increased themselves in the community. They've done some things to make the world a better place. And they're going, why? I just don't want this pardon or this felony hanging over my head anymore. And the president will grant a pardon. This one was done. We're talking about the pardon that Joe Biden did of his son. This one was done a couple of days ago actually yesterday, I think, before. And I'll tell you the timing of it. Hunter Biden was scheduled to be sentenced on December 12th. What's that? 9 days from now, on the federal gun case in Delaware. December 16th, less than 2 weeks from now, on the tax evasion case in California. That's why Biden pardoned his son at this period of time, because the kid was facing sentencing in two different courts and could have spent, and probably would have spent, at least some time in jail. Now, people are saying these carried up to 25 years in prison. Yeah, maybe so. But 25 months would have been a long shot for this case. Unlikely he would have served that amount of time. Nonetheless, the president has pardoned his son, and this is a complete and full pardon of Hunter Biden for those two acts. Now, it goes a little further, because President Biden did something that I haven't seen before. He sort of backdates the pardon, and he makes it a full and unconditional pardon for all acts that occurred up since 2014. In other words, he said he gives him a 10-year pardon. I've never seen that before. He's actually pardoning him for conduct we don't even know about yet. But what he's saying is the government's sort of fishing around at other things that Hunter may have done. He's being investigated for other things that he may have done. We're going back to 2014. He's saying, nope, we're pardoning him on all of that right now. Can it be overturned? Absolutely not. This is a full and complete pardon, and it goes back even further than just the incidents that we're talking about. It's actually an 11-year span. The pardon goes from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. In other words, you've got free reign. Everything you've done in that period of time is going to be is going to be thrown out and he won't face any consequences. So he didn't serve a day in jail, didn't serve a day in prison, didn't serve his probation, didn't complete his supervised release or any of that stuff, and he gets a full pardon. That's what you get to do when you're the President of the United States. How is this going to affect Joe Biden in the future? Well, he didn't run for re-election. He's not going to run for anything in the future. He's old. He's certainly done his time as president, has no political future. How this affects Democrats in the future, I guess it remains to be seen. But I want to talk a little bit more about the nuances of this after the break, because there's a lot more to the pardon than maybe some of you know. Stay with us.
Jazz games at Delta Center are unforgettable. From the atmosphere, the crowd noise, and of course, the electrifying on-court action. With ticket plans, you can go to as many as 11 games this season. Choose from packages like the All-Star Plan, Weekend Plan, or the Western Rivals Plan, and get what works for you. Come cheer on the Jazz and get your ticket package at UtahJazz.com.
The Movie Show is at Minky Couture in Layton this Friday, December 6th from 11 to 1. Join KSL News Radio and Minky Couture and get special discounts and savings on your favorite Minky Couture products. Looking for the best gift ever? That's what you get at Minky Couture, the original luxury blanket company. New this year at Minky are family Christmas pajamas, luxury robes, and snuggly sleeping bags. Save 50% this Friday only. For The Movie Show in Layton, use code MOVIE50 at minkycouture.com or any of the 6 Minky locations.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
I let go of about 120 pounds. Mobility's back. When people see me, they're just shocked. You know, they always ask you, like, what'd you do? And I tell them, I came to SOTA. It's accountability. These guys, I don't think I would have done it on my own if I didn't have their support.
Find the proof at SOTAweightloss.com with thousands of before and after pictures from real people who found lasting success with SOTA Weight Loss.
I am down 50 pounds in 11 weeks, and this program works. All you have to do is do what they ask you to do. The pounds melt off. It's amazing, and I feel great.
Imagine getting on the scale every week and watching the pounds melt off, showing off your new look for the holidays. There's a reason SOTA Weight Loss is the chosen weight loss program of the Dallas Cowboys organization and fans. Right now, get SOTA's biggest savings of the year. Connect with a nutritionist today at SOTAweightloss.com and ask about our holiday special. That's SOTA weightloss.com. SOTA is, say it with me, state of the art.
Hi, I'm Utah tax attorney Jordan Wilcox. In these trying times, when inflation is out of control and our paychecks give us less and less money to support our families, the last thing any of us can afford is for the IRS to garnish wages, levy bank accounts, or seize assets. It's important now more than ever to protect your financial security.
We have reduced our tax liability by over $42,000.
$66,300.
Let us safeguard you. Visit endtaxworry.com. We have saved countless taxpayers like you millions of dollars, kept businesses in operation, and ensured that our clients receive the best possible outcome.
Nearly $65,000.
$12,000 is something that you can look at and say, okay, I can handle that.
I'm Jordan Wilcox, your Utah tax attorney. You work hard for your money. Let us work hard for you. Visit endtaxworry.com.
We're very grateful.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, South Korea's National Assembly said no to the president's declaration of martial law. Now he's planning to rescind it. Second, Delta Airlines ready to start up a big new facility for training pilots. And third, lots more people are renting in Utah, while buyers are staying on the sidelines because houses are so expensive. 44 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
You're back with us on Inside Sources, and I'm your host this afternoon, Greg Skordas, and we're talking about Hunter Biden, who pleaded guilty over the summer to federal charges of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes from 2016 to 2020. $1.4 million for 4 years. That's a lot of taxes. And in a separate case, he was convicted by a jury of 12 for making false statements on a federal firearms form that you have to fill out. The ATF requires that when you purchase a handgun. He purchased one in 2018 and said at the time that he was not using drugs. President Biden was asked repeatedly, as recently as June of this year, what he was going to do. They said, hey, you're the president. You have the full and complete authority to pardon your son. Are you going to do it? Are you going to set an example? Are you going to hold your kids' feet to the fire? And here's what he said.
I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know. And I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
And he didn't abide by the jury decision. He did pardon Hunter Biden. And what he said was that he's upset with his own. This is his own Justice Department, by the way, that prosecuted Hunter Biden. It's not like they hired some, that Trump has threatened to, go after his political enemies, and whether he can ever even do that remains to be seen. But this is President Biden's own Justice Department. Now, there was a special prosecutor, Dave Weiss, who took the case. He indicted Hunter Biden. And if you recall, this case was a mess from the beginning. Hunter Biden actually got to the table at one point. He was ready to plead guilty. They were all there. The judge says, I just want to make sure this covers everything. The government said, well, maybe not. Hunter said, well, you promised it would. So the whole deal fell apart. It was a good deal. Hunter Biden should have just kept that deal. We wouldn't even be having this conversation probably. But instead, he decided to fight it. More serious charges were filed against him. He was convicted. He was scheduled to be sentenced in just a week on the gun charge. It was scheduled to be sentenced in 2 weeks on the tax evasion charge. He's been pardoned now by the President of the United States, his father. And it's a blanket pardon. It's for any crime he may have committed for the last 11 years. I said at the last break we haven't had such a blanket pardon, but I'm corrected a little bit. In 1974, some of you weren't around then, but I was, President Gerald Ford granted Richard Nixon, former President Richard Nixon, a full and complete pardon for any offenses that he may have committed during his presidency. And of course, we're talking about the Watergate conspiracy and whatnot. He hadn't even been charged. He hadn't been indicted. There wasn't anything that was even going on at the time in terms of potential prosecution. Although it's safe to say that the Justice Department was starting to zero in on him. Anyway, Ford takes the presidency. He immediately pardons Nixon for crimes you may or may not have committed, and then Nixon, of course, was never pardoned. So the pardon process, let me tell you how this works. In America, in the state system, in Utah, we have what's called an expungement process, and it's only for state crimes. If you commit a felony, you're eligible for expungement after 8 years of being crime-free, completing your probation, completing your parole. Misdemeanors are usually 4 or 5 years, depending on what. And some crimes, as you could expect, sex crimes, crimes of violence, and multiple crimes, you're not eligible for an expungement. Federal law doesn't use the word expungement. It doesn't exist. You can't get an expungement on a federal case. In Utah, we do have what's called a board of pardons. They have the authority to grant people a pardon. Some people say the governor can grant a pardon. That's not true. He can commute a sentence. He can say, I'm going to allow that this person's done 10 years in prison on a 20-year sentence. He doesn't have to serve the rest of it. I'll commute it. But in terms of pardoning, in terms of taking that conviction off of your record, only the Board of Pardons can do that in the state. In the federal system, the only person that can grant a pardon is the President of the United States, and that's exactly what Joe Biden did. So let me talk to you about some of the downsides to a pardon, because you think this is the best thing that could happen to Hunter Biden. Maybe not. Let me just. This is some things we've been thinking about here in terms of what could potential downside be. If you're accused of a crime or suspected of a crime, or you have some reason to think that you are going to be charged with a crime, you can assert what's called the Fifth Amendment. You can say, I'm not going to answer questions about that crime because it could subject me to prejudice. It could subject me to a problem. You don't have that right if you've been pardoned. Once you've been pardoned, you don't have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent because there's no downside to it. So if he is questioned before Congress or he's questioned before a grand jury and he's held to answer questions about certain conduct that occurred during that 11-year period that he supposedly got a pardon, he doesn't get to assert the Fifth Amendment. So if he's, for example, asked questions about traveling to China on Air Force Two, meeting with Chinese communist people, leaders, I should say, or he paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to sit on a Ukrainian energy company's board for which he had no qualifications. Let's say that he's brought to the table on those and he wants to talk about those. Now, President Biden thinks, well, he's been pardoned from all that. He doesn't have to answer those questions. That's not true. He may not get prosecuted for that, but he can be brought to the table. He can be questioned. He can be subject to a grand jury subpoena and ask questions about that. If he lies, that's a new crime for which he has not been pardoned because the pardon ceased on the timeline for the pardon ended on December 1st, the day President Biden issued the pardon. So anything he does after that, he's subject to prosecution for, including perjury, including giving a false statement to a grand jury. So he's not out of the woods right now, and I would assume that an aggressive Justice Department could still look at him and say, okay, we can now ask you questions about your meetings with Chinese communist leaders. We can now ask you questions about Ukrainian energy company's board that you served on for no apparent reason, and you made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Come to the table. We're going to ask you those questions, and you don't get to assert the Fifth Amendment because you're not subject to criminal prosecution for anything you did in relation to that. So, wow, good news, bad news for Hunter Biden. I would have expected the president to have thought that out a little bit better before he grants what's called a blanket pardon and says you're excused from everything you've done from January 1st, 2014 until today, because it means that he's now subject to questions about that. Another thing I want to say about the pardon process, and I've done pardons for individuals. It's a good idea. I mean, some people are upset that we have this idea, you commit a crime, you should do the time. Absolutely. I was a prosecutor for 8 years. I've done defense work. I completely agree with that. But I do think that there comes a time in a person's life, and this hadn't happened to Hunter Biden. I'm not making excuses for Hunter. I'm not justifying what President Biden did. But there's a reason for the expungement process in the state system, and there is a purpose for the pardon process in the federal system, and that is to say, look, we all make mistakes, but if you can go some period of time, let's say you're committed of a drug offense and you complete drug court and you spend 10 years of sobriety, you do things to help other people out of the drug court, out of the drug problems. Yeah, you should be able to get an expungement for that. You should be able to clear your record up for that. You should be able to do things so that you don't have a felony hanging over your head. And I have to give the Utah legislature some credit because they've actually opened the doors a little bit to expungements in Utah and made it more, believe it or not, more available for people to get an expungement. I think we have a group called Clean Slate Utah that is actually going through people. These are minor offenders, misdemeanor offenders, helping them clear up their records, helping them clean things up so that they can get housing, so they can get loans, so they can get jobs, the things that are hard to get when you have a felony conviction or certain crimes on your record. Hunter Biden didn't do any of the things that would justify that. And I have to say that I'm disappointed with the president's decision here. I guess he's thinking there's no downside to him personally. He's not running for re-election. Kamala Harris lost. The Democrats can pick up the pieces maybe in the next cycle, and he's about to walk away into the sunset and hope that his son does as well. I don't think his son's out of the woods. I think the Trump administration is going to do some things and try to look into Hunter Biden, maybe try to catch him in a trap, ask him questions under oath, and see if they can get him on new charges, including perjury, false statements, or that type of thing. Wow, we'll see where all that goes. Thank you for listening to Inside Sources. Join Leah Murray and Taylor Morgan tomorrow from 1 to 3 for more political discussion and analysis on Inside Sources. Thank you for listening.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. South Korea's state council has passed a resolution officially lifting martial law in that country. President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law last night, insisting that the opposition party in the National Assembly had paralyzed the government and sympathized with North Korea. The Assembly responded by passing its own resolution rescinding the declaration. South Korean law required the president then to lift it. The Murray City Council is planning to vote on a proposal tonight regarding short-term rentals. Murray City Planning Manager Zachary Smallwood says currently the city doesn't allow any short-term rentals.
What we found is that it can be a detractor towards people actually being able to have a home.
Tonight, the council will vote on a proposal that would allow homeowners to rent out portions of their homes for short periods of time if they apply for a permit and are approved by the city. It would also enhance penalties for unlicensed rentals. We're going to see some changes in Utah's license plates starting next month. License plates can now be mailed to you. They'll be made with a flat screen printing process that reduces the cost of production. The registration decal will also be digital. According to St. George News, this will eliminate the need for a separate decal when a plate is first issued. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is down 76 points on the day, while the NASDAQ is up 76 right now. And our KSL weather, the bad air is lingering. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our client's portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more, and then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow, maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair. Save on every gallon with the DinoPay app. And here's Ricky Meese.
We have information of debris in the road. And this is southbound I-15 approaching 7200 south in the fast lane. Also, Salt Lake City PD wrapping up 2 crashes, one at 2100 south 10th east, another at 1700 east 1800 south. It's the 13th annual Christkindl Market, December 4th through 7th at This Is the Place Heritage Park. More booths, food, entertainment, and free nearby parking with free shuttle. All details, visit thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The winter air inversion remains in place over the Wasatch Front, trapping pollution and reducing air quality. A cold front coming in this weekend, though, could help conditions improve. Right now, 45 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomis from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
You're listening to an encore presentation of Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories, only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to the new Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. I am Taylor Morgan with Leah Murray. Leah, so much to talk about today in local and national politics. Of course, the place to start is with the Biden pardon of his son, Hunter Biden. Leah, when you saw this news, were you surprised? How did you react?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I don't know. What I hated about what the president said was he said, I hope anyone who...
This is Joe Biden we're talking about, just
Correct.
To be clear. Okay.
All right, so Joe Biden said, I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. And a little bit like it shouldn't be the case that he's thinking as a father in this position at all, right, Taylor? Like the pardon power is about calming down kind of tempestuous times. Where we've seen the pardon power used in the past, right, is after the Civil War.
The pardon power in the past is not something I will try to say fast.
Right, but like literally what the pardon power is the kind of the president acting as the country embodied in a person and then forgiving, right? So you forgive after the Civil War people who fought in the Confederacy, and you forgive, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Nixon in 1975 because you're trying to like calm down or 1973, 74 in there.
Yeah.
But you're trying to calm down everyone's anger about Nixon.
Right.
You're really not supposed to use it after Thanksgiving dinner being nice to your child.
Well, here's my thought. I was not surprised by the news that President Joe Biden officially pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. I was surprised, however, Leah, because I thought President Joe Biden had a real opportunity here. He had an opportunity to, I think, leave office on a high note, to really establish a meaningful legacy and to be talked about and seen favorably for years to come, Leah, because of how the pardon has been used in the past, particularly with Nixon. I'm of the opinion I would have advised, if I could have been in the room, in the Oval Office with Joe Biden, I would have pushed him to pardon President-elect Donald Trump at the same time he pardoned Hunter Biden. A lot of reasons why, Leah. I think that it would be helpful to pardon Donald Trump as he comes back into the White House, to not have the cloud of possible sentencing and federal charges down the road, to have him come in without that cloud hanging over his administration, to set a bipartisan tone to be magnanimous in that way, and at the same time kind of diffuse the controversy over a Hunter Biden pardon. I do think it's fair that the specific charges that Hunter Biden was facing here, of course, he was convicted on federal gun-related charges for filling out a form, lying on a form. He also pleaded guilty to 9 tax-related federal charges back in September. So the charges that Hunter Biden has been facing here are similar to Donald Trump's federal charges in the way that they were both, or they could be argued to be politically motivated.
Yeah, no, and I think the argument here is, had it been anyone other than Joe Biden's son, or had it been anyone other than Donald Trump, then probably these cases don't go forward.
Yeah.
Right? So what we heard from our legal analyst, Greg Skordas, over the years is like the case with Biden is usually not something that you would prosecute. I mean, I actually think so, Taylor. I think I disagree with you a little bit. I might have pushed Joe Biden to pardon Trump back in 2021.
Interesting.
Like, if you were really trying to overcome the divisiveness,
Yes.
right? Everything that he talked about in 2020, bringing the country back together. At that moment, you could have said, "Look, I feel like some of this stuff is political in nature. I feel like the reason why Trump is being accused of things is because of, kind of bad blood in politics. And I'm just going to forgive him in this moment." And a little bit, Taylor, I think that might have gone a long way 4 years ago to doing what you just wish that he would do now.
Yeah, and I wished he would have done it back then as well. I thought that would have been, a very healing